Up and Adam.
Tractor systems are offline.
We are Beyond FM.
Beyond FM.
The future of broadcasting is here.
Up and Adam with Adam Montiel. It's community content from Concentrate. It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Yes, some say life is just where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Tuesday, let's go. How you doing? Thanks for being Up and Adam. My name is Adam Montiel. It is True Crime Tuesday on Up and Adam with a local twist. She has been arrested at Cal Poly, tackled on NBA courts, and just convicted of felony conspiracy for stealing chickens from a Purdue farm in Petaluma. Her name is Zoe Rosenberg. She's making national, international, LA Times, New York Times, The Guardian, this paper. This story is everywhere. She's 23, again, from right here in SLO. She runs a local animal sanctuary, and she just told me straight up, she doesn't think we should be allowed to eat meat. Look, full disclosure, I am team meat. I always have been. I know the benefits, protein, iron, B12, right, omega-3s. It's helped humans evolve and thrive, and I believe in balance, the brain function, basic human nutrition. And man, I'll be honest, it tastes good. But that's full disclosure, right? But I really wanted to hear her out again. We had her before her trial. And any good person who eats meat, I feel, should want these animals being treated with respect and humanely. And sometimes they're just not. And no matter where you are on this, whether you're with her, against her, somewhere in the middle, this will be a fair chat. She answers every question I throw at her, and I'll be real, I commend her for it. In her first local interview since the verdict, convicted of felony conspiracy, 3 other charges, we're going to talk about why she's willing to break the law. Talk about her health condition that could make jail deadly, whether she's fueled by purpose or performance, and what she believes about freedom for animals and for us. She showed up. I asked the questions, and I can promise you, no one's heard Zoe Rosenberg quite like this. Before we bust that conversation open, this article, interesting. Here it is. The Amazonification of Whole Foods, or some of us still call it whole paycheck, right? In suburban Philly, they've got shop bots hiding in the back, ready to fetch your Tide Pods, your Pepsi, your Doritos for when the organic kale and the prebiotic sodas aren't quite doing it for you. You can open the Amazon app, tap what you want, and boom, your soda's waiting like the guilty secret behind the quinoa. Meanwhile, in Chicago, they didn't even hide it. Whole Foods cleared the cafe, dropped in a 3,800 square foot Amazon grocery kiosk, stocked it with things like Kraft mac and cheese, Chips Ahoy, a purple glow of spicy, sweet chili Doritos. The play is obvious. Buy your cabbage upstairs, grab your Red Bull on the way out, and Amazon keeps every dollar inside the building. This all comes 8 years after Amazon dropped $13.7 billion on Whole Foods. And after a lot of tech and a few price cut photo ops, they didn't really move the grocery needle as fast as they wanted to. They never got it past the 4% market share. So now they're going in even harder. Whole Foods CEO Jason Buchel now oversees all of Amazon's grocery brands, Amazon Fresh, Amazon Go, and Whole Foods. And starting in December, Whole Foods corporate staff will officially become Amazon employees. That, quote, simplify and invest in the customer line came with layoffs this week, and a lot of longtime team members are feeling that metric-driven squeeze for sure. Brand-wise, this is a tightrope. Whole Foods was built on strict ingredient standards, local foragers, and that chatty, walk you to the aisle kind of vibe, right? Amazon says that the standards haven't budged, and they're just iterating so you can shop clean and still snag everyday essentials. Critics and some suppliers say, be super, super careful and don't blur the badge so much that the loyalists bounce. Don't want that to happen. So the question is, will it work? If the goal is to stop leakage to other stores for the junky stuff, the Doritos, the Red Bull, the this, the that, the Chicago test makes sense. But if your love language is that hot bar minestrone in a store that feels special, A Pepsi bell ringing in the back room might kill the mood. Fittingly, that sign on that Chicago entryway says, "We're still here." The question is, for how long? And as what? Will Whole Foods kind of change that face? Interesting. We will see. WTF, what the food, huh? All right, before we get into our chat with Zoe Rosenberg, looking forward to this, I want to tell you about our friends at Life Elements. There is this little spot in Atascadero. You'd never notice it if you weren't looking for it. Tucked in the back corner of a plaza, 7425 El Camino Real, Suite O, back right corner. It's my little skincare speakeasy. Except instead of cocktails, they're serving up hand-whipped, arnica salve, bug spray, broad spectrum CBD magic. This is Life Elements. And every product here feels like it was made just for you. Because sometimes it literally was. Owner Martha is in the back cooking up some batches in real time. You got to go check them out. Get in there because they do such great stuff. I love Kurt and Martha. You can shop their stuff at their store. You can also find their stuff at the Hive in Arroyo Grande, the General Store downtown Paso, or anytime from anywhere at lifeelements.com. Don't forget to use that promo code ADAM. Save 15% off while you're online. Support wellness made by real people right here locally. They do great work. I love them. Check them out, lifeelements.com for more.
It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
All right, today it is True Crime Tuesday. My guest is Zoe Rosenberg, a name you've heard before. She's from right here in San Luis Obispo. She runs a local animal sanctuary, and she's just been convicted of felony conspiracy for what she calls rescuing 4 chickens from a Purdue facility in Petaluma. She's been arrested at Cal Poly, dragged off the field at a national championship game, chained herself to an NBA hoop, all in the name of animal rights. This is her first local interview since the verdict, and she showed up ready to talk about all of it. The cause, the consequences, and the cost. Zoe, appreciate you for being here, for being up and at 'em.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let me ask you, how are you hanging in there right now?
All right, it's definitely been overwhelming and a lot to process, but I'm feeling motivated to keep on moving forward.
Now, Zoe, we've talked before this, so you know this isn't about ambushing you. You're a tremendously smart woman. You've taken big swings, and you've put yourself out there in ways most people wouldn't dare. But I also want you, listeners, to know I'm going to ask some real questions today. Some going to be tough. You always take the tough questions, like a champ. And, some might press a little, but every single one is coming from, and I hope you know this about me because we've talked before, genuine curiosity, respect for the fact that you're here sitting, albeit virtually, across from me and talking. So before we dive in, how do you feel about being challenged on the beliefs that you're literally willing to get arrested for?
That's fine. I mean, I know not everyone agrees with me, and, I'm fighting to create change, and that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that all the conversations I'm going to have are going to be easy. And I want people to challenge their own beliefs about animals. And that means that I have to be challenged as well.
When someone pushes back, not with hate, but with real question, do you welcome that, or does it feel like you're being misunderstood all over again?
Oh, no, I welcome that. And, I hope I can find common ground with people ultimately, of course. But I'm always happy to have conversations with people.
So you've become a symbol now. I mean, whether it was Chain Girl, right? The activist in the headlines, the face of DXE, whether you want it or not, you are a brand now. How do you make sure that this movement stays about the animals and doesn't accidentally become about Zoe?
Totally. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what I always say, and what I've been saying leading up to this trial, is I am a representative for these animals. In this case, in this specific legal case, I am a representative for Poppy, Ivy, Astra, and Azalea, the 4 chickens who I rescued. And it's so important to me in the social media posts that I'm making, and the press interviews that I'm doing, and the conversations I'm just having day to day, that I am sharing their names, that I am telling their story, and that it's not about me and the consequences and everything that I'm going through and facing, but it is about them and elevating their story and sharing the stories of really all of the animals at Petaluma Poultry and at any facility or company where animals are facing exploitation and abuse.
Now, when the cameras are off and it's just you, what keeps your ego in check?
I try to spend time with the animals themselves, and that helps me remember who it is about. And it also helps me feel less afraid in what I am going through, because it's just a reminder that this is bigger than me. This is and what they're going through, what animals are going through in these facilities is so much worse than anything that could ever happen to me in this case.
Now, we talk a lot these days about like doing the right thing, especially in activism. But when you're that deep in the trenches, that line between conviction and delusion, it can blur. So like, is there ever been a moment where you step back and wondered, am I fighting for the cause? Am I fighting to be right? Like, have you ever like questioned, or even maybe one of your, the times, if you want to call, I don't want to dismiss them by calling them stunts, but like one of your activism, exercises, have you ever thought like, did I go too far? Any of those?
Yeah. I mean, I think like it is hard, obviously within nonviolence, it is hard to go too far given the magnitude of what animals are facing. I mean, we have in the United States alone about 10 billion chickens who are factory farmed and slaughtered every single year. The magnitude of animal suffering is just incomprehensible. And so I think it's hard to go too far. Obviously, with, again, nonviolence is very important to me, and I would never want to cross that line. There are certainly times when I feel very personally outraged by something and personally very invested in something. But I have to make the decision that it's something I have to let go for strategic reasons, because it's not the fight worth picking at this moment, or whatever it might be. So there certainly are times when I might have to take a step back for other reasons.
Now, sometimes when people protest, they lose the very audience that they're trying to persuade, and they might get attention, but not respect, not results. Have you ever worried that tactics have pushed people away from your cause rather than pulling them in?
I mean, it's certainly always a risk. And I think with all of the activism that we're doing, we never know exactly how it's going to land. And sometimes it can make people dislike us. And that's a risk that we do take, certainly. And some things will land differently with different people. I think, the most important thing is to get attention on the issue, particularly with issues facing animals. I think they've become very taboo in our society because I think the average person does care so much about animals. They don't want to think about them suffering, and they don't want to have those conversations. And so just getting that conversation started, even if some people are initially going to react negatively to that conversation, I think is a step in the right direction, even if it sometimes doesn't feel like it. But I have, like in this particular case, I've been surprised pleasantly by the amount of support that it has gotten, and the amount of outrage just from, really everyday people who aren't animal rights activists, who have really sympathized with the animals, with the act of animal rescue, has been really inspiring to see.
And I have a whole line of questioning about leaning into that. And I'm going to give you a chance to kind of talk about really what we don't always see. Because look, you've dedicated your life to showing empathy for animals most people don't think twice about. But activism, often it can dehumanize the other side. If you sat down with the person who raises those chickens, what would you want them to understand about you?
I would want them to understand that I am not at all coming at any of this from a place of hate or even judgment. I don't think that anyone who eats animals or who is stuck in this industry, who is maybe even doing horrible things or even criminal things to animals, I don't think those people are bad people. I believe genuinely that everyone is good at their core. That's something I truly believe. And I ultimately want to be able to work with people wherever they are at, whatever they are doing in my fight for what I hope is a kinder world. And, those people who are operating Purdue, who are running these slaughterhouses and these factory farms, I want to work with them to move forward. I don't want to work against them ultimately.
You said after your conviction that the legal system protects corporations, not the animals, but the system also gave you a platform, a trial, a chance to speak. Do you believe in law as a tool for justice, or is your trust in the system completely gone after this?
I've definitely lost a lot of trust in the system. And I think like throughout the trial, it was disturbing to, hear Purdue referred to as the alleged victim in this case. And of course, I understand that that's legally on paper the case. But I think it's disturbing in this context because of what these chickens are going through. And, I'm certainly not saying I'm the victim in this case. I don't think that's the case either. I certainly don't see myself as a victim, but I think the chickens themselves are the victims. And Purdue, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. They make over $10 billion in revenue every single year. And, I rescued 4 chickens from their company who they're alleging were worth about $24. And I think those chickens in this story are the victims. All of the chickens who are boiled alive there and have all these horrible things happening to them, I think they are the victims. And so I wish that the narrative in the courtroom would acknowledge that more. I certainly have lost a great deal of faith in our legal system, and I've had concerns, with our legal system for a number of reasons, including for human rights issues for many, many years. But that said, it is the system that we currently are living with, and I would certainly like to pass legislation that better protects animals, and I would like to see that actually enforced. I think too often we pass some sort of animal welfare legislation, and then we see that it doesn't actually lead to any concrete changes in animals' lives. With Prop 2 and Prop 12, how much are those animal welfare laws actually being enforced? When we go and we do an investigation at these facilities, we see often it's not enforced. And when we report these facilities, often we're just simply ignored.
So on December 3rd, a judge is going to decide whether you spend time behind bars. But I imagine, sometimes the real sentence it's already started with you inside. What has already been taken from you in this process? What do you refuse to let go of, no matter what the verdict or the sentencing is?
Yeah. So leading up to this trial, I've been on pretrial release. So I've been actually on the highest level of pretrial release in Sonoma County, which is level 3. And so I have spent about 2 years wearing a ankle monitor, having my travel restricted. I'm not allowed to possess chickens, ducks, and other fowl because they're that worried I'm going to go rescue more birds. And I am currently on an ankle monitor while I am awaiting the sentencing hearing on December 3rd. So, there's that's already been the case for a while now. And then on December 3rd, I could be sentenced to up to 4.5 years in the Sonoma County jail. But through all of this, I'm not letting go of my hope. I'm not letting go of my hope for a kinder world for animals. And I'm not letting go of just my fight and my passion to speak up for these vulnerable beings who live every single day in pain.
Now, you've described these actions as rescues, but you've also admitted to using disguises, forged credentials, breaking into private property. So when people ask, if you believe what you're doing is right, why hide while you're doing it?
Yeah, so sometimes, we might take steps in the moment that maybe increase the chances of actually being able to pull off a rescue, especially at a place like a slaughterhouse where there is heightened security, and it is harder to navigate through the facility safely. Particularly, I think, for me, the most important thing is always the safety of the animals. And we have seen in the past when people have been stopped while doing a rescue, that can often lead to the animals getting seriously injured by someone who's angry or upset, or even killed by law enforcement after the fact. So sometimes, there might be measures that we take to just pull the actual rescue off successfully. But ultimately, we always are open about everything that we do. And so, everything is documented. We, publish it online. We publish it with the press, speak to the press openly with our names and showing our faces.
I mean, would you worry that what someone might think about the movement if it can't survive transparency from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a concern. And I think it's something worth considering as we do this work going forward, and ways that we can safely pull off a rescue without maybe taking those measures.
Yeah. Now, because I'm sure you've probably gotten a question like this before, but for the sake of that, like you said, you're rescuing animals the same way you would rescue a child from like abuse. But if I were to flip that, if someone broke the law to steal like your laptop, but said they were doing it to protect, to protest tech companies exploiting child labor in cobalt mines, you
Sure.
wouldn't be okay with that, right?
No. And I think there's a clear difference to me in that scenario, which is that, a laptop is not a sentient being. And that doesn't actually necessarily do anything directly to help those children. Whereas animals are sentient. They are individuals with feelings and thoughts and personalities. And in fact, there are laws that protect them from bodily harm because we do recognize that about them. And so I think it's there's a clear distinction in that regard.
What's like the moment in all this that made you feel the most proud? Like you're like, this is why I do this.
Honestly, I feel just the most proud to know that Poppy, Ivy, Astra, and Azalea are safe. That no matter what happens to me, that they're able to live out their lives and be given the respect and freedom and compassion that they always deserved. And, even if this entire thing got no attention, no one ever knew anything that happened in this case, it would still all be worth it to me genuinely just knowing that they're alive and well.
Now, the DA was pretty blunt with you, like accused you and your group of using the court system as a stage, not for justice, but for attention. Do you believe the courtroom is a place to fight for animals, or are you turning trials into strategy in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly a bit of both. I think, obviously, we do want attention on these issues, and I don't think, we hide from that. I don't think we would deny that. What's happening to animals is typically happening behind closed doors, and most stories of these animals die with those animals. People never get to hear their voices or understand what happened to them. And when we can shine a spotlight on these issues, I think that's very, very important for, creating change that we want to see. And often these trials are a way that we can get attention on this issue. And I think that's important. I think they're also a place where we can actually change the law. And, I think through particularly the appellate process, when we do lose in court, we have the opportunity to make case law. For example, in this case, we're going to be appealing the judge's ruling on the necessity defense. The judge ruled that the necessity defense does not apply to non-human animals because they are the legal equivalent of things, even though the necessity defense in the state of California refers to someone. It doesn't specify that someone must be human. It just says you have to be acting to protect someone. And so if an appellate judge disagrees with this judge at the appellate level and says, no, actually animals are someone, then that could create important case law for actually recognizing animals as being different from inanimate objects.
It's so interesting because we talk in the house, like I'll say something about like the dog and my fiance will be like, no, we don't own the dog. Because yes, they're like our kids. They're like, right. So to think that we own them, it feels like you feel like you don't feel that. But yes, you do. No one can just come and grab your dog. So it's like the fact that they're things is kind of what protects someone from being able to come over and grab my dog. Or if my dog just runs away, well, maybe he's a sentient being. He wanted to run away. But no, he's like, my dog, I got to bring him back to the house. So it seems like once we cross into that, we might be getting into some weird territory there.
Yeah. And, the way we usually explain it is like, we're not necessarily saying people should just, let their domesticated animals just run off and do whatever, because obviously, given the world that we're living in and given the process of domestication, animals do need certain care from us. They do need certain things from us. Where
and my dog is my dog, right? Like that dog that's barking in the background, that might be your dog. You know what I mean? Like I can't have your dog.
Sure. And I think like we just need a different designation for those animals, and rather than being owners for them, being more like a legal guardian and having more of a established legal relationship with them as we would with, say, human children, where we're recognizing that, yes, they are not owned, but I'm their legal guardian and I'm going to make decisions in their best interest because they can't do it themselves. But they're different from property.
So felony conspiracy, girl, that's heavy. I mean, it's not just activists gone too far. I mean, it's like they say you were convicted of leading an illegal operation, and that's a real different message. What do you think this verdict really says about how the justice system views you, not just as an activist, but literally as a threat?
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows, honestly, that they are very threatened by what we're doing and by the idea that we are rescuing animals. And I think the reason why animal rescue in particular has faced so much backlash, obviously I've done civil disobedience in the past, and activists and the animal rights movement have been doing different types of civil disobedience for many, many years, but that hasn't faced any sort of harsh prosecution. It's always been, misdemeanor arrests, and then it doesn't go anywhere. No charges get filed or they get dropped or whatever. And I think the reason why we're seeing such a different reaction to the rescue of animals is because we're really challenging the status of animals legally. And, when we're rescuing an animal, and we're documenting it and we're sharing that animal's story. We're not just putting a spotlight on what's happening to animals in animal agriculture. We're also, we're putting a face to those animals, and we're letting people know that there's actual individuals behind these industries. And I think that is one of the most threatening ideas to animal agriculture, is just simply the idea that animals are individuals with lives worth living.
So if the system sees you as dangerous, does that fuel you, or does it scare you?
It's a bit of both. But I certainly think that often when we are facing backlash, when we are facing repression, it can be a sign that what we're doing is actually the most effective thing.
Okay, so you got a defense team, a public platform, and a pending appeal, but you're also a college student, and that's not cheap. Can I ask, you can't be paying for this legal bill out of your pocket. Is this part of DXC? How do you fit into this larger scenario where you're able to freely do this and feel like I got someone who has my back?
Yeah. So, my part of my legal defense is covered by Direct Action Everywhere, and part is covered by the Animal Activist Legal Defense Project, which is a legal clinic based out of Denver. And actually, one of my attorneys is from their project, and they are doing work to represent animal rights activists pro bono who are facing any sort of legal repression.
Now, there's a strange kind of freedom, I imagine, in knowing that you'll get defended. You'll be defended no matter what. You can push harder. You can take bigger risks. Does knowing there's a lawyer waiting in the wings, does it give you more freedom? Does it feel like that, or does it feel like more responsibility?
Yeah, it's definitely reassuring to know that there are lawyers who have our backs as we are doing this work. I think it's definitely reassuring for me and for a lot of people.
Okay, I want to ask you this gently and with respect, and I know you've talked about this on your Insta, but you've spoken about it publicly, but you have a visible feeding tube and a serious medical condition. Can you elaborate to what that is for folks who maybe didn't see that on your Insta?
Sure, yeah. So I just for some background, I've been living with autoimmune disease called type 1 diabetes since I was 8 years old. So basically my pancreas is not capable of producing insulin, and that makes it very difficult to control my blood sugars. And both high and low blood sugars can cause nerve damage. And over the summer, I got very, very sick and lost the ability largely to eat and drink. And I was diagnosed with a condition called gastroparesis, which is the partial paralysis of the stomach. And that's from damage done to the nerve that controls your stomach's ability to empty and digest food. So I ended up hospitalized actually the week before the trial started, and I was hospitalized for 6 days. And during that hospital stay, I did end up getting a nasal feeding tube, which bypasses my stomach and goes into my small intestine. And I'm on an experimental drug right now for gastroparesis, hoping to ultimately get off the feeding tube. But if that's not successful enough, then I'll be looking at surgical options.
And I certainly wouldn't accuse you of this at all, but have you had even the thought in your head like, oh, people are going to think I'm doing this because it's a week before trial? Have they called you out for that?
There have been a few people on social media who have said, oh, of course. I think what most people thought at first was because I ended up hospitalized so close to the start date of the trial. And I think some people thought I was trying to get out of the trial. Which makes sense. Like I probably, would have occurred to me too.
Sure.
But I actually, throughout my hospital stay, I was like fighting to get discharged in time for the trial because I really did not want the trial to be delayed. It had already been 2 years and I didn't want to prolong that more. Just the buildup is the worst part, honestly. So, I was so annoying to my nurses and doctors. I was like, I have to be out by Sunday because the trial started Monday. I was just begging to be discharged, and I got out of the hospital the afternoon before the trial started.
And it kind of sucks because, and again, I don't mean this pejoratively, but what you do is somewhat performative. So not with a tube, but I'm saying what you do, when you're being sprawled out on a field or you're chained to a basketball thing. So, people can see that and go like, wait a minute, and I kind of wouldn't blame them, but I feel it's a fair question to ask, right?
Yeah, no, I get it too, and I totally understand why people's mind would go there. But no, it's a very real situation, and hopefully it'll be resolved somewhat soon, but we'll see.
Has your health ever factored into your decisions about protest, about risk, about even arrest? And do you believe your condition do you believe it should keep you out of jail?
It's a good question. I certainly think it's something that the judge will likely take into consideration. I certainly don't think that, as a general rule, that anyone's health obviously excuses them from anything whatsoever. But I think, it is something that factors into what I do. When I was arrested for this case 2 years ago, and I was in the Sonoma County Jail, they informed me that they would forcibly remove my insulin pump, which I obviously need to survive. And so I don't know what will happen if I do end up incarcerated. I do think it could genuinely be a life-threatening situation if the jail is unwilling to accommodate my medical needs, which is a bummer because, I feel like that is really the only thing from a personal perspective that really weighs on me when I think about the possibility of incarceration. Obviously, I know jail would not be fun, period. It's certainly a very difficult place to be for anyone. But I feel like the other aspects of jail I could kind of just cope with and deal with and know that I'm eventually going to see the other side of it. But the medical stuff does feel scary.
Do you think you would survive if they gave you 3, 4, 5 years?
I don't know. I think it really depends what the jail does, how they address my medical issues. If they remove my medical devices like they say that they will, then I'm not sure that I will survive.
Willing to die for this?
Yeah, ultimately I am.
Let's take all the courtroom drama protest headlines away for a second. I want to get like a macro view on something. I want to strip it all down. Because at the core of every movement, there's like a vision of the way the world should be, right? Is your actual goal to create a world where eating meat, any meat, is no longer allowed or just no longer accepted?
Yeah, I definitely think that is the direction I would like to see society move. I would like to see us transition away from a food system that relies on exploiting animals in any way. And I think that's something that could be achievable without having a negative impact on human society, and could actually have a very positive impact for us.
Would you like to win over people where they feel that they choose to do that themselves, or would you like to win over a system that makes it impossible for them to do that themselves?
I mean, of course, I think it's a bit of both. I think, I'm approaching this issue from a systemic lens. My goal is not to attack any individuals for what they're doing, or for their beliefs, or for their choices, but to create kind of systemic change. But that said, of course, my goal is not to create some sort of dictatorship where this is what we're doing. And I think it is something that will happen gradually, and hopefully will come with a shift in public opinion, and a shift in the way that the public does view and perceive animals, versus just a weird dictatorship situation or something like that.
Right. Well, do you believe people should have the right to eat meat even if you think it's wrong?
I don't. I think obviously there are situations that might be like, there might be complex, abstract situations, but I think it should not be the default as it currently is to eat animals.
I wonder if that's where, because the next few questions I think are going to be, it's really going to lean into what you have been trying to get people to understand. But I really think like that is where you probably have the biggest polar opposite of, approach to people and their free will to do what we've been doing for ever. I've seen some of the videos from factory farms, yours, others. And even if you're skeptical of the messenger, some of the footage, of course, it's hard to watch. Sick animals, broken wings, open wounds. Do you think part of the reason people get so angry at you isn't because they think you're lying, but because deep down they know maybe you're telling the truth?
Yeah, no, totally. I think a lot of times people get defensive. People kind of react to something from a place of guilt or from a place of shame. And that's, of course, never my intention personally when I'm sharing these findings with people from these investigations. My goal is not to make anyone feel bad about themselves. I want people, in fact, to join us in fighting to change it in whatever capacity that they feel able to. But I certainly think that is the root of it for a lot of people.
I mean, is civil disobedience and breaking the law your only remaining tool? Does it feel like it's the last tool in the toolbox? Or what would you say to someone who believes there might be a part of the system broken, but still says, Zoe, there's got to be a better way than breaking the law or not letting me eat what I want?
So, yeah, I mean, it's I don't think that civil disobedience is the only way to create change. I think it is an important way to create change, and it has been very important for many social justice movements throughout history. But it's certainly not the only way. And I think, people who are interested in getting involved in the animal rights movement, I wouldn't want them to feel like intimidated to get involved because they don't want to do civil disobedience. There are so many ways that people in our movement take action for animals, whether that be public property protests, campaigning, legislators, things like that. There are a lot of ways to take action.
Now, we've all eaten, well, not all, but most of us have eaten meat. Most people listening to this still do. It's normalized. It's been around forever. Like I mentioned, it's convenient. It's delicious. It's since cavemen, we've been doing this. But if the process behind it makes one sick to their stomach, that does create a dissonance that's hard to live with and hard to stomach, no pun intended. How do you hold space for people who agree with you on the cruelty, but still can't let go of the lifestyle, or you saying, when I ask you, should we not be allowed to do it? And then you're really stepping into their freedom, what to put in their mouth.
Yeah, I guess I try to focus on the common ground that I do have with people, which is, again, typically that we don't want to see animals hurt unnecessarily. We don't want to see unnecessary suffering. And I think we can work together to create change in the areas that we do agree upon. And, we've done legislative work in the past, and we're going to continue doing legislative work in the future to challenge factory farming specifically. I think California is an important place in particular to work on that front. There are some massive factory farms in this state, particularly in the Central Valley, but all across the state. And we can work on challenging those massive companies that are constantly cutting corners at the cost of both the animals and honestly our public health too.
Now, you've been arrested for chaining yourself to a hoop at an NBA game, tackled on the field of a national championship, now convicted for with the chickens. You've said you won't apologize for what you did, but has there been a moment sitting incarcerated, maybe during the trial, where you in your heart questioned, maybe not so much if it was worth it, but just about any aspect of your mechanism of delivery?
Certainly I would never say that I've done everything perfectly. And there are certainly, maybe little things here and there that I wish I'd done differently, or said in a better way or in a kinder way or whatever it might be. But, the ultimate act, particularly in this case, the actual act of rescuing Poppy, Ivy, Aster, and Azalea, I'm certainly not sorry for that.
So let's say you don't get time. Could they perhaps put more limits on you, a lengthy probation where, again, you're not allowed to do X, Y, Z? Would you abide by those?
Yeah, I think a very likely circumstances that I end up on house arrest, possibly for a long time. And, I definitely would comply with the court, and I have for the past 2 years as I've been on an ankle monitor. I have complied with the court, but still, obviously, within those restrictions, continuing to speak up for animals in the ways that I still can.
Because I was going to say that kind of what that does, it kind of puts you, if we're talking sports, it puts you on the injured reserve list. In a way, you might still be able to talk and tell people, but you certainly wouldn't be able to do those things, those stunts, if you will. And you would abide by that if the court says that. If the court says, hey, we won't send you to jail, but none of it, 5-7 years you're on, I don't know, probation, house arrest, whatever they say, you can't do X, Y, Z. You say now that you'll abide by whatever the court says to you.
Yeah. And I mean, they certainly would not be able to completely take away my free speech rights. Obviously,
right.
The First Amendment would still apply. So I would still be able to take action for animals in various ways.
Yeah. So there are people who hate what you stand for, and really mainly just you want to make it illegal to eat meat. You want to tell us this. There are ranchers, families who say, look, we feed the world, we do it ethically, and this girl is destroying livelihoods. What would you say directly to them if they were sitting across from you?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think I know a lot of families do feel very strongly that that's their way of life, and it's hard for them to imagine another way. I would encourage people to just practice imagining a different world and a different way of doing things. And, there's actually a really cool program, the Rancher Advocacy Program, run by a former cattle rancher in Texas. And she works with people within the animal agriculture industry to actually transition from animal agriculture to plant agriculture, and just find ways to actually sit down and work with those people. And I think that's something I would love to see happen more.
Does the hate ever get to you? Comments on your Insta, comments on articles, things like that. Does it hurt your feelings sometimes?
Mostly no. I mean, sometimes there are people who will say things that are just so untrue that it's like frustrating, or someone will just completely make something up where I'm like, I don't even know where you got that from. That can be frustrating sometimes, and it's like makes me want to respond, and I usually try to ignore hate comments, but no, I mean, it is what it is, and I just try to stay focused on my why I'm doing this, which is for the animals.
What are you going to spend November doing? I mean, your sentencing is at the very beginning of December. What are you going to spend this November doing? What can you do? And is it, I mean, obviously school, obviously, is it work with DXE? I mean, are you still trying to get out there? You're staying active in socials. What's November going to be spent doing with you?
Yeah, I'm going to definitely keep doing my animal rights activism and, posting videos online about this case and talking to people about it. But also I definitely want to spend time with the animals at my animal sanctuary while I still can, and spend time outside and in nature while I still have some amount of freedom.
Your sanctuary's here in SLO, right?
Yeah, it is.
How often do you come back here? I know you're in school in Berkeley.
Yeah, usually like every few weeks or so. Wish I could come more often.
What's mom and dad feel like right now? Are they scared that something's going to happen to you, or what are their feelings on things?
Yeah, they're pretty worried, particularly I think about the health issues if I am incarcerated. But they'll be at my sentencing hearing, and just take it day by day.
Well, I gotta say, I appreciate you. You have always just came and chatted openly and honestly, and I'm with you on so far. And then when you get to trying to strip people of their ability to eat what they want, I really have an issue with that. But I mean, you are on it in a lot of points when you bring out, things that are just boldly, no matter whether people eat meat or not, it would turn their hearts upside down to know some of the ways that these animals are treated. So I've always enjoyed, having a real open dialogue with you, and the way that you confront just open conversation, and the fact that you're local, and but man, I mean, your story now, it's and you're not shying away from the felon thing at all. The hours after the verdict, it's on your Insta bio, girl. I mean, you're all over that shit.
Yeah, someone had edited
bit of a badge of honor for you, isn't it?
I mean, someone had edited my Wikipedia page right after the conviction to say convicted felon and former animal rights activist. And I was like, the only thing offensive here is the former animal rights activist. I'm still an animal rights activist.
When you see your wiki, do you kind of go, who's editing this? Or do you have, people who can kind of manage that a little bit? Is that something that you even keeps a tab on, or is just it is what it is? It says what it says.
It honestly really is what it is. And they track your IP address, so you can't actually edit your own Wikipedia page. So it's not me.
Yeah, or else it would be glowing, I'm sure. Well, I thanks for the time here, and look, we'll catch up with you again, and we'll keep in contact. And have you done any more local media here, like Tribune or anything?
I haven't. There was I think Cal Coast News ran a story, but
but no interviews.
No interviews yet. Yeah.
But I mean, shoot, I've seen your article, LA Times, New York Times, international media. I mean, it's been wild. So thanks for taking time to, return my text and to really give me a nice, honest, long conversation. I appreciate that about you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
My thanks to Zoe for sitting down, having this conversation. Whether you agree with her or not, she answered every question. For that, I give her credit. If you want to learn more about her sanctuary, follow her work, I've got links in the show notes. And if this conversation stirred something in you, good or bad, that means we're doing our job. I wanted to treat her fairly. And, we were real here. I mean, you know where I stand. I told you straight up. She told you straight up. So there you go. Question is, what do you think the sentence should be? Should she spend time in jail for what she did? Could be up to 5 years with that felony conspiracy charge. Does her health situation, does that kind of change the game and the vibe for you a little bit? Should it for the judge? Well, we are less than 1 month away from finding out, and we'll let you know what goes down. All right, tomorrow on the show, looking forward to introducing you to Megan Burkhardt. She is the new publisher of Slow Life Magazine. Looking forward to bringing you that conversation. Lots of good local stuff. We got Rob Rossi coming up on Thursday for a two-parter. Lots going on this week. Thanks to our friends at Moonshiner Collective for being original music on the show called Start Again. Thanks to our friends at Tamber Winery for giving us the Tamber Lowbro Studios. You can learn more at tamberwinery.com. They're tasting them in the village of Arroyo Grande. Beautiful wines, beautiful people, great folks. Check them out, tamberwinery.com, T-I-M-B-R-E, tamberwinery.com. Thank you for rating, reviewing, subscribing to the show wherever you listen to it. I'm going to post that interview, the video of it, on my YouTube, which I don't use too much, but I thought that'd be a good one to post because I did a whole video of it. It was all virtual, so might as well post it, right? Thanks for sharing the podcast with a friend, building the community. It means a ton. Hope you're enjoying your week. Hope you have a great day. Till tomorrow, I am Adam Montiel. Thank you again for being up and at 'em.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again. Let's start again. We'll start again. Let's start again.